What I learned was that sometimes I would make a sign and they said things that I absolutely did not mean, but I should have. And so what came to me was, if you were a teacher and you were teaching, if you weren't learning, you probably weren't teaching very well. And so I went on. My dad came out to see me graduate, and, I did the deal, and my father said, "We're really proud of you, son," but you know what he went on. He said, "You got to start riding and driving and start talking. What are you going to do with a master's degree?" I hunched my shoulder. I got my backpack, and I went on to the University of Wisconsin. I spent 2 years there writing on oil spills. No one was interested in oil spills, but something happened. Exxon Valdez. And I was the only one in the United States writing on oil spills. My dad came out again. He said, "I don't know how you do this, son. I mean, you don't ride in cars, you don't talk." My sister said, "Maybe I should leave you alone because you seem to be doing a lot better when you're not saying anything." Well, I put on my backpack again. I put my banjo, and I walked all the way to the East Coast, put my foot in the Atlantic Ocean. It was 7 years and 1 day it took me to walk across the United States. And on Earth Day, 1990, my 20th anniversary of Earth Day, that's when I began to speak. And that's what I said: "Thank you for being here," because it's sort of like that tree in the forest falling in. And if there's no one there to hear, does it really make a sound? And I'm thanking you, and I'm thanking my family, because they had come to hear me speak. And that's communication. And they also taught me about listening, that they listened to me. And it's one of those things that came out of the silence, the listening to each other. Really very important. We need to listen to each other. Well, my journey kept going on. My dad said, "That's one," and I still didn't let that go. I worked for the Coast Guard, was made a UN Goodwill Ambassador. I wrote regulations for the United States. I wrote oil spill regulations. 20 years ago, someone had said to me, "John, listen, do you really want to make a difference?" "Yeah, I want to make a difference." He said, "You just start walking east. Get out of your car and just start walking east." And as I walked off a little bit, and they said, "Yeah, and shut up too." "You're going to make a difference, buddy." How could that be? How could that be? How could doing such a simple thing like walking and not talking make a difference? Well, my time at the Coast Guard was a really good time. And after that, I only worked 1 year. I said, "That's enough. 1 year is enough for me to do that." I got on a sailboat, and I sailed down through the Caribbean and walked through all of the islands and to Venezuela. And, I forgot the most important thing, which is why I started talking, which I have to tell you. I started talking because I had studied environment. I had studied environment at this level, this formal level, but there was this informal level. And the informal level, that I learned about people and what we do and how we are. And environment changed from just being about trees and birds and endangered species to being about how we treated each other. Because if we are the environment, then all we need to do is look around us and see how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other. And so that's the message that I had, and I said, well, I'm going to have to spread that message. And so I got in my sailboat, sailed all the way through the Caribbean. It wasn't really my sailboat. I kind of worked on that boat. Got to Venezuela, and I started walking. This is the last part of this story, because it's how I got here, because I still didn't ride in motorized vehicles. I was walking through El Dorado. It's a prison town, famous prison, or infamous prison, in Venezuela. And I don't know what possessed me, because this was not like me. There I am walking past the guard gate, and the guard stops and says, "Pasaporte, pasaporte," and with an M16 pointed at me. And I looked at him and I said, "Passport? Huh. I don't need to show you my passport. It's in the back of my pack. I'm Dr. Francis. I'm a UN ambassador, and I'm walking around the world. And I started walking off. What possessed me to say this thing? The road turned into the jungle. I didn't get shot. And I started saying, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. What was that about, I'm saying? What was that about? It took me 100 miles to figure out that in my heart, in me, I had become a prisoner. I was a prisoner, and I needed to escape. The prison that I was in was the fact that I did not drive or use motorized vehicles. Now, how could that be? Because when I started, it seemed very appropriate to me not to use motorized vehicles. But the thing that was different was every birthday I asked myself about silence, but I never asked myself about my decision to just use my feet. I had no idea I was going to become a UN ambassador. I had no idea I would have a PhD. And so I realized that I had a responsibility to more than just me, and that I was going to have to change. You know, we can do it. I was going to have to change. And I was afraid to change because I was so used to the guy who only just walked. I was so used to that person that I didn't want to stop. I didn't know who I would be if I changed. But I know I needed to. I know I needed to change because it would be the only way that I could be here today. And I know that a lot of times we find ourselves in this wonderful place where we've gotten to, but there's another place for us to go. And we kind of have to leave behind the security of who we've become and go to the place for who we are becoming. And so I want to encourage you to go to that next place, to let yourself out of any prison that you might find yourself in, as comfortable as it may be, because we have to do something now. We have to change now. As our former vice president said, we have to become activists. So if my voice can touch you, if my actions can touch you, if my being here can touch you, please let it be. And I know that all of you have touched me while I've been here. So let's go out into the world and take this caring, this love, this respect that we've shown each other right here at TED, and take this out into the world, because we are the environment, and how we treat each other is really how we're going to treat the environment. So I want to thank you for being here, and I want to end this in 5 seconds of silence. Thank you.